Thanks for logging on to Wayne.com. The football season has now come and gone, and we have one state championship here in Northeast Indiana to claim. That's the Bishop Luers Knights. Tom Davis joining us as always. And Tom, you were down at the state championship game with Bishop Luers. And what did you see in that game? Because you predicted a Monrovia loss by 20 points, and
yes,
it was just 7. Were the Bulldogs a little better than we thought, or was it a case of Luers not having their best game? Because
No. The Bulldogs were much better than what anybody anticipated. They had not played a schedule comparable to Luers' schedule, but they really ran the ball well. They had 316 yards rushing against Luers, and they dominated time of possession in the first half, and they were up 17-7 at one point. And so Monrovia was much better than anybody really anticipated, so give them credit. But a halftime adjustment by Matt Lindsay of Bishop Luers moved some players around in different positions and really curbed that rushing attack of Monrovia in the second half. Take that coupled with the defense of the Luers, and that was the key to the victory.
How concerned do you think Bishop Luers was at the point where it was 17-7, midway through the second, towards the end of the second quarter, and they're thinking, wow, we really got hit in the mouth by this Monrovia, especially the way they ran the football?
Well, the players said they weren't shocked by that, but truth be told, I think they probably were. Now, the Luers coaching staff, they probably weren't surprised. They had been watching film on Monrovia. They knew exactly what Monrovia could do, and they're the experts, so they had a good idea of what Monrovia could get done. So the coaches weren't surprised, but I'm sure the players really were taken aback a little bit. But give Luers kids credit. They didn't panic. They kept battling. They got 2 great defensive stops in the second half, and that spurred them on to victory.
Going back to the end of the second quarter, how big was Kenny Mullen's touchdown there with, I think, 17 seconds left on the clock to make it a 17-14 game? Because talking to Matt Lindsay after the game, he said that was the biggest play of the game in his mind.
Oh, sure. That gives you momentum going into the locker room, and it gives you a belief, okay, we're not completely out of this. We can come back. We just scored relatively quickly. So that gives you the belief that you can get the job done in the second half, and that's what it did for Luers.
They come back and in the third quarter hit a 44-yard field goal that had about a foot left of distance on it. Barely made it over the crossbar, but what a huge kick. Do you think that also kind of continued the confidence and just said, okay, this is time for a Luers comeback?
Well, it did, but really what spurred the confidence of the Luers kids was their defense. And about midway through the third quarter, they had Monrovia had a 4th and 2 at the 49-yard line to keep a drive going. And keep in mind, Monrovia only had 2 drives the entire second half. And so they needed that to convert that 4th and 2 to keep their drive going. And Jalen Smith, a freshman of all things at Luers, comes through with a big stop on the Monrovia running back to kill that drive. And then, obviously, with about, 6 and change left in the game, the 4th and 1 from the 1-yard line was just monumental. I mean, I don't care what the history of Luers is. That is one of the biggest plays in the history of their football program.
Yeah, Jordan Presley coming up big, stop in the run game.
He and both Steve Kiermaier both contributed on that one.
Yeah, that was a big one. And then, of course, they run out the clock. A big play to Cameron Mack on a 3rd down. They picked up almost 30 yards, basically sealed it out. Across the state, did that change anyone's perception of Luers, or has it always been at the highest level?
I think for the coaches around the state, they know exactly what Luers is capable of doing. They know the schedule they play and the history of the program and all that. But just your general fans, they probably looked at it, the record, and said, they're 8-5. What can they possibly do? And but sure enough, Luers came through. And Luers, they are so talented and they are so mentally tough. And those kids, give them credit, they know how to win. And it translates over into basketball and a myriad of other sports as well. So give Luers credit for getting the job done.
When you take a look at the players that they will be returning, they're going to be returning 18 of 22
loaded
starters. Is this a team that not only can be back there next year, but perhaps even 2-3 years down the road?
You never know once you get into the tournament what can happen. You can have a muddy field or whatever, and that affects play. But there's no legitimate reason why Luers isn't among the top teams in the state for the next couple of years. And you mentioned that 30-yard pass in the fourth quarter. James Kanapke, he's a sophomore. This is his first year of quarterbacking Luers, 10 of 16 for 140 yards in the state championship game. With his team down, and they know, okay, we're going to have to pass the ball to kind of get points quickly, James Kanapke was as cool as could be. And think about the players that Luers had. Michael Rogers, freshman receiver, led him in the game. Jalen Smith made defensive plays, freshman. Kenny Mullen, a junior coming back. D'Angelo Fincher, a junior coming back. Luers is loaded for the next several years.
as far as that goes. Was this a good stage for people to see guys like James Kanapke and Kenny Mullen and guys that I think are going to have a chance to play Division I football perhaps down the road?
Oh, absolutely, because you're in front of 14,000 people. You're in front of a statewide television audience. All the college coaches in the Midwest are paying attention to who wins those games. And, you know, Kanapke in particular, you look at a young kid who's behind and the coach says, look, we're down 10. We're going to have to throw the ball. We're going to have to storm back and do this against Monrovia, who had already beaten the number 1, number 2 teams in the state to get to that point, and they got it done.
Final question about the Lure State Championship. 8th at Lures, 7th under Matt Lindsay. Where does this put him as far as the rankings of coaches? Where does he stand as far as statewide coaches go? You know,
numerically, you have to say he's among the best, if not the best. I mean, who else can take that type of a record? I mean, I know you've got your Wright down at Sheridan and some other coaches that have had lengthy careers, but if Matt Lindsay stays with this and he can keep this going, which obviously he can with the talent they have coming back, he's as good a coach as you can see anywhere in the Midwest.
All right, his 200th career win. That's something we didn't talk about because the state championship sort of overshadowed
it. He gets lost in the shuffle.
But he did pick up his 200th win this past Friday at Lucas Oil Stadium.